earlier, and then walking back at night, they'd gone for a night hike in the snow, weren't using torches, and then suddenly this thing roared, bellowed at them from just off the track in the forest, and she realised that she couldn't move.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal Pieces. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode is a really great one. We are featuring our interview that we did over on the other channel with Sarah Bignell, who is from Yowie Central, is her podcast, and it's an amazing show. You should check it out, dealing with the Australian Yowie, which is their term for Bigfoot. As well as she does witness reports with Australia Yowie Research group as well. So she's a phenomenal person, just a charming, engaging, fun person to talk to. And I know you're going to love this one. So check it out.
I interviewed somebody who had an encounter in Western Australia the other day, and he was living out in the bush at the time, just living in a tent pretty much. Or no, actually he wasn't even in a tent. He had sort of a humpy that he'd set up. And he woke up in the middle of the night and he realized he was wide awake and paralyzed, like couldn't move. Oh. He sort of looks down to make sure his dog's there. He can see his dog's lying by his side, also paralyzed. And there was a couple of bush rats, little rodents, who were there but paralyzed too, mid-bite.
Wow.
Like,
oh,
yes.
Wow.
I was thinking sometimes there's a thing called sleep paralysis, so you might be sort of in that half dreaming, half awake half awake state. Mm-hmm. But if you wake up and you're paralyzed, your dog is too, and the bush rats over there are paralyzed as well, like frozen, like somebody had waved a magic wand and they were mid-bite.
Wow.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
And it lasted for a couple of minutes.
Wow.
It was very frightening.
That's very intense. And you got to wonder, like, was this a Yowie experience overall, or was it just a weird experience for these people?
He had, in that time, he realised he could hear very heavy bipedal footsteps coming closer and closer. So he didn't actually see, he didn't actually see the creature, but he heard like incredibly heavy and definitely 2 feet, not a kangaroo. There's nothing else that makes that sort of bipedal walking in Australia.
Right.
We don't have bears. We don't have, we don't have apes, apparently. But yeah, there's a few instances of that. What we think maybe is infrasound, but people feeling completely paralyzed and unable to move. I interviewed a woman who had an encounter at Mount Hotham, which is in the Victorian high country up in the mountains. Uh-huh. And she had the same thing, they'd seen one earlier, a couple of days earlier, and then walking back at night, they'd gone for a night hike in the snow, weren't using torches, and then suddenly this thing roared, bellowed at them from just off the track in the forest, and she realised that she couldn't move.
Wow.
Couldn't move anything. Like couldn't move her head, couldn't move, and it took for her husband to kind of trying to break himself out of it and shove her and go, run. And it was only then that she was able to move. So and same with Dean Harrison. He had the same situation with one of his many sightings up in Ormo. He had that same thing where suddenly he knows he's not alone. There's something growling and grunting and roaring, but he can't move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
scary.
It is.
That's scary shit.
It really is. That's pretty hardcore stuff. And I guess it's tough to understand because I don't know that the infrasound from like a tiger or an elephant or the other animals that alligators, I guess, use it to some degree. I don't know that it has that same paralyzing effect, or at least and perhaps it's due to the intelligence of these Yowies, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, that they know how to utilize it and tuned it to understand or to have better results. Perhaps, I don't know. It's very peculiar, but it's very interesting.
I've actually heard a few. There's and a couple of when women are driving alone in their cars at night, which is slightly well, not more than slightly. It's a lot scary.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of I found it really interesting. The whole idea of it. Her impression was not that it was trying to harm her, that it was more like a teenager toying with her and playing with her.
Yeah.
Scary still, but the whole idea of roadside sightings perplexes me, because they must see a creature with strength like that, with abilities like that, with the sense of smell, with the sight. How they could not see the car coming and get out of the way.
Yeah.
So I tend to think there's a lot more deliberate about a lot of the roadside sightings that we hear, and there are truckloads of them.
Right.
Like the vast majority are roadside sightings.
Right.
Yeah, but definitely frightening. Seeing something running on four legs and then rearing up onto two, and then looking at you with no expression. That I don't know what would be worse, actually, because I interviewed someone who talked about seeing rage and fear and shock go across the being's face.
Right.
So I don't know what would be worse, like complete expressionless or
Yeah.
or seeing the rage. I don't know. Both pretty bad, pretty scary.
Right. What were you going to ask them?
Well, no, I was going to say, we've heard several, people talk about like juvenile Bigfoots counting coup, trying to get the street cred with their friends, So that's what I was thinking after she was talking about how it jumped in front of her and like jumped out of the way, and how he made this creature made such an entrance, knocking over trees and blah 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 blah. I thought it was interesting, and then how it just kind of gave her a look like, whatever, and like zipped off again. So It sounds to me like a juvenile counting coup.
Yeah.
That's a great possibility. And I agree. You're right. I assume that their hearing is also impeccable, and it's like, I know when I've been up in the woods in a real desolate place, you can hear a car coming like a mile and a half or more long before it ever shows up. And it's like, they're gotta be doing it on purpose. I've thought the same thing. It's like, if they have, and obviously they work really hard to stay away from us normally. But then you get to something like this, it's like, it's looking at her with the deadpan face, like, is that all you got?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just crazy. Now, I got to ask you, how often do you hear reports about the glowing eyes like that?
Oh, quite regularly. Okay. If they're nighttime sightings, then the glowing red eyes appear quite regularly, and not always red. Sometimes orange, sometimes green, sometimes an iridescent blue-white. The vast majority, though, are red, orange. Yeah. Some people even talk about them potentially being self-illuminating, like being able to see, like it's not traditional eye shine that's reflecting another source of light. There's something that's self-illuminating about the eyes. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know
right.
how that works.
Sure.
That's pretty common. What about in the States? Do you guys get
are there
more reports?
It comes up with the glowing eyes. I know of one gentleman, I think his name is Kevin Keeney. He's a researcher out of Arizona on the Mogollon Ridge, and he talks about how he sits there in absolute blackness, no lights, not even a campfire, and suddenly he'll see the red eyes appear. So it's not like he has a light source that should be reflecting back. And he talks about how they glow, and it's really incredible. it doesn't come up a ton, but it does come up. And that's why I'm curious over there, because, I don't know that there's many differences at all between the Yowie and the Bigfoot or Sasquatch of the Americas. I don't know. It seems like they're by and large the same being. Are you aware of any differences between the two?
Well, the reports here, no, a short answer is they seem to be really similar. There's similar reports from the US and from Australia. We do get Australian Yowie Research are getting more and more reports in now of a dogman-like creature, something with a muzzle. A lot of the older, there's a lot of newspaper reports from early European settlement in Australia, the newspapers that existed at the time, but there are reports back in the 1800s of these beings. And so they're generally following the same, the big, hairy, same description as Bigfoot or the smaller beings. But they did describe some of these beings back in those days as having a bit of a muzzle. Now, I don't know whether that's like a baboon type muzzle and whether they were just trying to interpret what they were seeing. Most of these people would never have seen a gorilla in real life at that stage.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm not sure whether the dogman exists here. We have had reports of something with ears like a Doberman dog with muzzle.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's not as common, but we've certainly had a few reports of that.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for checking out the episode. Please feel free to get subscribed and ring the bell. The notifications are going to be kind of important because we're not sure going forward from here on out when we're going to actually release the episodes. There's going to be one episode per week for sure going forward from this point, and we don't know exactly when that's going to be, so make sure if you subscribe, you do ring the bell so that you get the notifications whenever the episodes go live. Also, check out our other channel, youtube.com/paranormal portal, for the full-length interviews and videos that these clips are coming from. As well as, be sure to please check out our podcast. That's doing wonderful, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback from all of you listeners out there, so thank you very much for that. If you haven't checked it out, please do. And if you're able to, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening. So thank you very much, guys. That does it for this episode, so we'll see you next time. Take care, and until then, talk to you soon.
Mm-hmm.